Who's watching the meeting? Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Manlius Town Board meeting for October 23rd, 2024, roughly 6:30 p.m. As always, we are streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and to our website, and we have a Zoom running that allows folks to participate remotely if they can't make it down to the meeting. If you're looking for instructions on how to join the Zoom, you can go to the top of every agenda. It has the instructions on how to join. So with that, I would like to ask Councilor Nesh to lead the pledge.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I have no one signed up for open podium. Is anyone here to make a comment on open podium?
Rob Foley, 132 Washington Street. I was wondering, it might be covered in the 2025 budget update, but if there was a, Councilor Nicholson said there was a line that you guys have put into the budget for the new town building, or, you know, granting, pulling some funds. And I was wondering what that amount was, to which it might be in the update.
So we're working on finalizing a couple different pieces of that, but the money that would be spent is on the study to understand a potential site, potential costs, so that way we can compare and, you know, present that to the public as the total cost, and we are going to be using ARPA funds to fund that study. So I don't believe we'll have some.
We don't really have a quote.
Yeah, we don't have a quote yet, so we're still.
I think if you don't mind, I think what Mr. Oley is referring to is the capital reserve funds. And have we allocated any funds to that?
As of right now.
As of right now, no.
Not in this version of the budget.
So when you guys go to find another piece of land, you won't have anything in the reserve to purchase that?
Well, so we haven't decided how much is gonna go in the 2025 budget yet.
Okay.
But generally speaking, no. So right now the plan is, we've just received a final draft of the renovation study for this building. And so following that, we are working with someone who owns a piece of property that is very attractive. We're waiting on a letter of intent. Once we have that letter of intent, we're going to be going out and finding an engineering firm to do the spec of what a building on that site, what it would cost, what it would look like, options on the table, whether it's just a police department versus all of the town services there. And so my hope is that within April or May of next year, that study will be completed. We're gonna make the renovation study available pretty shortly once we've got a final version ready to go. And then we'll be having meetings throughout next year to inform the public, present all the options. And the intent is to put the bond resolution for the new town facility on this new piece of property on the ballot in 2025, with the understanding that the renovation study is the backup plan.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just have a question now. You said Mary Testy, Fayetteville, something about ARPA funds. I thought that the ARPA funds were gonna be done this year using that.
No, so they have to all be allocated this year. They have to be spent by 2026, and our intent is to allocate all of the remaining ARPA funds and have it spent in the year 2025.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So first up, we are joined by our Twin Ponds group to present an economic and fiscal impact analysis. I want to kind of kick off by saying thank you. This is not something that we get for most of the projects that we look at in town, but especially given the scale and the fact that this was our first PUD. I know in talking with Mr. Brewer here, you know, we had wanted to explore something like this, especially I had, and I think some of the board had too, with the way that the Onondaga County piloting has changed and understanding the how a pilot works, where it's an offset of taxes that are simply not being paid. I know there's concerns about both fire and police services, so this is really meant to explain the impact of this entire project, not just on, tax revenue, but also in economic impact. So I had a advanced sneak peek of this, and I will say it's a very thorough and complete presentation, and go ahead and kick it off.
Well, you did a pretty good intro, so obviously thank you everyone for having us, and, I mean, maybe just a little update in terms of where the project is today, since we've seen you. So we've got site plan approval in August. We will do some site preparation work here this winter. Now that we have site plan approval, we are going out to investors to find investors for the project. I mean, it is a significant project. It's gonna be $100+ million project, so, it's a big capital spend, but we are getting some very good interest from outside investors. Actually outside of the area that have not invested in Central New York. So it's just a testament for what this board did to create this project, to create that outside investment. So as John said, when the county did change the Utah policy, they changed it so they created 3 different programs for residential projects to more define it, to help with some of the residential development that's needed in this area, to help with the need that's forthcoming. So we did decide to commission a report with MRB Group that evaluated not only the costs of what a 300-unit project is on the municipality, but the benefit too in terms of the economic benefit and what it does to a project. So we do have a PowerPoint presentation, so I don't know if that could be.
Yeah, I've tried promoting you, but it keeps
You
getting
should
like.
get a pop up.
And then I have Michael with MRB here, who's gonna take it once I figure this out.
You should be able to share now,
Thank you.
of course.
While he's getting that going, I'll introduce myself. I'm Mike Lindolo. I'm the Director of Economic Development for MRB Group. MRB Group is primarily a municipal engineering, architecture, and consulting group. Most of our clients are public sector folks, including the village of Manlius, just as an example, nearby example. In this particular case, just in the interest of full disclosure, of course, I was hired by the developer, right? But I just want to give you the background on what my company does and kind of the perspective we bring to it. So, mind if I hold that screen if I'm going to advance it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just hit the arrow button.
Thank you. Why am I? Okay, here we go. Thank you. All right, so that was me. I will say, I've done, believe it or not, despite my incredibly youthful appearance, I've done about 300 of these studies across 25 different states, all different typologies, and all different types of analyses to get there. So I'm going to do one of those things where I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you it, and I'm going to tell you what I told you kind of thing. So we're going to start with the summary, all right? And everything beyond this initial slide is how we got to the summary, okay? But I want you to see where we're going. On the very top, I apologize for how small this is, on the very top left, under total construction jobs, you can see we estimate, based on the typical spend for a project like this, about 461 construction job years, about $50 million in wages to construction. Ongoing jobs, these are year after year jobs for the duration of the entire project post-construction. We estimate about 140 jobs and roughly $7.2 million in wages, right? The fiscal benefits to local government, we have listed here at $23,787,000. That's the increase in property tax revenue over what the site would generate without the project, right? This does contemplate the IDA's standard abatement schedule for workforce housing. Sales tax during construction, this is just the county portion, $351,000. Sales tax during operations of about $4.8 million. Again, that's just the county portion of it. And at the bottom, we have the average annual fiscal impact, okay? The benefits I just described are in that middle column. The town, on average, per year, again, in that middle column, will get about $97,000 in taxes. The school will get 531, the fire district will get 76, and that totals up to about $700,000 per year in benefit. We're excluding the county from this. This is just the town, school district fire. The cost, that's the cost of the provision of services to serve the project and any demands the project puts on the town, the school, and the fire. You can see the numbers there, 117, 427,000, 101,000 for the fire, for a total of 647,000. What this tells you, to cut right to the chase, is that on average, between all three jurisdictions, you have a net positive. After we account for all of the costs, on an average, annual average, it's about $58,000 of net benefit. Benefit minus cost, $58,000, okay? So, how do we get there? And if anybody has questions as we go, I'm happy to take them, obviously at the discretion of.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About so obviously, the biggest gain there is the school district that puts us at a positive,
That's right,
but the fire is an 80-20 basically share between the village and the town
Mhm.
on that service. And then the town, so the village here is Fayetteville, right? So the village of Fayetteville and the town are at a net loss, and we don't see any of the money from the school district.
that's right.
So it's a net loss for the town and the villages.
Right, with the clarification, of course, that the fire department is independent of the town, but yes, that's right. So individual jurisdictions, right, may not be net positive, but across all three.
It's a
So
village.
we
fire
think about
department.
it, I'm sorry, go ahead,
It's a village fire department, we fund 80% of their
Right.
budget and the village funds the other.
that's right. But as I understand, the fire department only covers a portion of the town, right?
But it
So-
covers this portion.
It covers this portion here.
Right, so it's, I guess when I think about it like this, ultimately what we wanna know is the impact of the taxpayer, right? So you have some negative, you have some positive. I think the real takeaway as town board members is that this is not a tax windfall and it's not a tax burden, right, across the jurisdictions. That's a good place to be, right? Because what we would prefer, obviously, not to propose a project that is a net negative, right? That's gonna cost the taxpayer something. So what this says is across those, the taxpayer is gonna be protected.
If you take care of those school taxes and they're not going up, that's what we take the heat for the schools. We'd be very happy. That looks like that'll help there.
I hope so, and you're in good company, we have, I deal with communities all over New York State, right? And, school district taxes comprise 2/3 to sometimes as many as 3/4 of the tax bill that people pay, so.
But how the fire department's gonna be covered? For the loss, the net loss.
What's that?
The fire department's net loss, how's that gonna get covered? By the taxpayers?
But the general idea is that average taxpayer is still having a total reduction for,
No, because the school's budget doesn't cover the fire department budget.
yes, but the taxpayer who's paying their taxes. So they will,
That's right.
probably pay another 50 cents to the town, they'll pay another 50 cents to the fire district. But the school is receiving $1 benefit or a $2 benefit. That's what that's trying to get across.
Well, let him do this, okay,
All right,
because he's got details about fire.
quite a bit, yeah. We can always come back to the question later. Okay, economic impacts, this is the jobs, right? So, what you can see here is, the total spend on the project's more than 90 million, but we estimate about 90 million will be spent locally, we're defining local as within the county, right? You can see the jobs there, the direct jobs, those are the construction related jobs themselves, 205. We have economic models that say, okay, for the county, right? If you insert $90 million in sales, you get those 205 construction jobs, but you also get a bunch of like supplier jobs, right? People that are purchasing equipment and materials and supplies for the building project, that creates jobs elsewhere. And you get the employees, the construction employees spend some of their wages locally, they get you a few more jobs. So we're looking during the construction period, 461 job years, which is a hard concept to understand, but it's basically one job for 2 years is 2 jobs, right? 2 job years. So the equivalent of 461 people being employed for a year, earning 50 million. The ongoing economic impacts are comprised mostly of household spending, okay? And then some operational jobs. So household spending, what does that mean? We have 278 units that are gonna be your market rate units. Data from the US government, from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, tells us that households in the spending category spend about $47,000 per year, and that's the top bracket. Those are the market rate units at the top. It breaks it down, food, household furnishings, that kind of thing, right? The bottom are the workforce units, right? That's the stipulated area median income bracket for the folks that we occupy the workforce units. They spend about $36,000 a year. You do all the math, you add it all up. What this means is about, if you add 309 units, you get 309 units worth of spending per year. That's about $11.4 million of spending, right? We're gonna add, so I'm sorry. So then what does that mean? It means 87 direct jobs, which again, we put through the model and we say, okay, those are the direct jobs. We also have, again, supplier, business to business purchases. We have employees spending their wages. It ends up being a total of 130 jobs. That's, day after day, year after year, you get that. There's an additional few jobs, relatively minor, that are specific to the development itself. You can see there's a few jobs related to retail on site and then the property management maintenance. That's how we get to the total of 140 jobs. So that's the number really to think about. About 140 jobs into perpetuity, earning about $7.2 million. Fiscal impacts. This is impacts to revenues and expenses of municipal entities. This table is unreadable. But I'll just say this, at its current assessment, all we do, kind of the name of the game in this kind of analysis is all of the things held constant, right? If we have that current assessment, and if we raise the existing tax rates by 2% per year, right, through the life, you're gonna get over 30 years, $360,000 in tax from the parcel as it exists today, unimproved. We unfortunately have an equally huge table. This is what our estimate is of the property taxes and pilot payments that would be paid over the 30 years. You'll see from the table that the first 10 years are the assumed pilot that the IDA has for workforce housing. And what that essentially does is it slowly adds in the improvement value. This is specific to just the town and school district. The fire district gets full tax for the whole time. Which means to say the pilot does not apply to the fire district. We do the same thing. We say, hey, hold everything else constant, increase your tax rates 2% per year. The improvement value gets you to $23 million. This is how we got to the sales tax revenue. I'm not gonna belabor this. It's just math. It's, we take the earnings that happen during construction, you take the earnings that happen during those 140 jobs year after year. You come up with a sales tax revenue that's based on a few formulas, right? We say, hey, about 70% will be spent in the county, about a quarter of that's gonna be taxable, right? And that's how we come up with this assumption here of about $4.8 million in tax revenue over that same period, about a 30-year period. Okay, now we get to the fun stuff. The questions that came up before. How do we account for police services? How do we account for fire? How do we account for school? We had the opportunity, and I would thank the town also. They made available to us town personnel and department heads. We actually had the opportunity to speak to folks directly, which is great. It's not always the case, so thank you for that. We got their budgets, we had a chance to talk to them, we got their call volumes. What we said is over the last 5 years, this is data we got directly from the police department, you had 19,668 calls, right, per year. We do this thing where we say, okay, how many of those calls are related to residential uses within the town? And as a proxy, we say what percentage of the town's assessed value is residential? It's 81%. So we say of those 19,000 calls, about 81% are residential, and the other ones are related to other folks, right? The businesses related, the commuters, that kind of thing. You had, so of that 19 and change, thousand calls, about 15.8 are residential calls. You have 14,000 households. You do the math, it works out to about, and this always surprises people, by the way, 1.14 calls per household, right? So on average, today in the town, you have about 1.14 calls per household. We know that the property is 309 households, so we say, okay, using the math and using all the averages, again, holding everything else constant, 352 calls. That's what we would predict as the impact on the police department. We did have a chance to talk to the police department, as I mentioned. They were very clear, they didn't anticipate any extraordinary costs associated with serving an additional 352 calls per year, right? They didn't need a new police station just because of this project, right? They didn't need a, well, you need, for other reasons, again, holding all else constant, you need a new police station. That's a good point.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So, I understand what you went through to get the
Yeah.
352. Do you find when you do this, 'cause you've done so many,
Mhm.
that number becomes really accurate? Cause it's almost hard to believe a place like that with 309 units is gonna generate, is that an annual number, 352? or
That
just
is
in the
an
first year?
annual number.
So you're projecting that there would be 352 calls for service by our police department?
But be careful here, because it's not 352 calls that will occur at that site.
It's
Right.
throughout the town.
It's throughout the town because you have 309 new households. So a person leaves the unit, they get in their car, they drive to the
Is here.
supermarket and they get in an accident, police call, right?
I understand.
We're just saying, this is exactly what's happening in the town today. If you add 309 more households, this is what the estimate would tell you. But this is a great question. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
that
like
was
the
a very
site.
helpful answer, that's great.
Okay, so we talked to the police department, they said, okay, we're gonna have our normal operating expenses, but we don't have to do anything beyond that, right? Right now, we calculated, based on the variable operating expenses, so we just loaded in all of the employee salary from your captain down to every officer and all the administrative staff. We all loaded it up into there, all their fringe benefits, the overhead, the whole thing, right? And that comes out to about $248 of variable, I'm sorry, this is a misspelled word. This should say variable cost per call, $248. So if you have 352 calls, that works out to $87,000. So if the project comes in, if these households are created, you'll have those police calls, we would anticipate your police budget, holding everything else constant, would go up $87,000 per year. We did something very similar for EMS and fire. The one change here is that the EMS fire folks, we again talked to them directly. They said, we will have one additional cost. Because there's twin ponds, because we're worried about extra access and people, we're gonna need some water and fire rescue equipment. And we're gonna need water and fire rescue training, okay? So fine. What do you think that's gonna cost? They said it's a one-time cost of about $59,000, $60,000, right? The call volume estimate is done the exact same way. How many fire calls, EMS calls, what percent are residential, how many calls per household. In this case, you have about 0.67 calls per household. And that means you'll have 207 calls per year. That's the estimate, right? Holding everything else constant. We did the same thing with one exception. Your ambulance gets to bill not for everybody, but for quite a few people, they get to bill and they get reimbursement from health insurance, Medicare, whatever, right? So we just back that out. We say, hey, if you have another 207 calls, we assume you're gonna get another X dollars in ambulance billing. Back that out, so the variable expenses net of this reimbursement is 1.3 million. That all works out to an annual cost for those 207 calls of about $73,000 to $74,000, okay?
Is that the same as police, though? That's 207 calls throughout the town?
Throughout the whole
Or
time.
at the location?
Yep, that's right. Okay, so, school districts is often where we get a lot of questions, so I'm just gonna drop into that for a second. There aren't a lot of comparables to this property, right? And we wanted to make sure that we gave the town a fair shake to say, okay, what can we come of it? So we came up with 3 that are local, so to speak, local in the Syracuse area. And just as a way to kind of benchmark this, one is from the Rochester Metro, right? But it's a similar thing. So we try to keep a similar location. So Fairview, as you can obviously see there, is the non-local one. Demographic, age, style, type of unit, tenure, amenities, etc. Across all 4 of those, you have 1,063 units. We called the school districts and said, at this place, right, how many kids are registered in your district? 96 across all of those, across all 4 of those. That works out to 0.09 students per unit, right? That's the metric, right? Which is not unusual, actually. I have to say, I often see about this number anywhere from, well, on Long Island, it can get down to 0.05, right? And then in other communities, it's a little bit higher, but this is a pretty typical number for this type of unit. If you had, 3 or 4 bedroom townhouses, it'd be different, right? So if you take that same thing, we come up with 28 new students. Now, we asked ourselves, okay, if you have 28 new students and we added them to the school district, would that trigger anything? What we found out in doing this and speaking with the superintendent and finding the data, you're actually well below your peak, well below your peak. And 28 new students wouldn't even get you halfway to what your peak was. So we felt pretty confident, no new instructional space would be required, no new administrative space. Okay, same methodology. We look at their instructional budget, we look at their student support services, which of course includes students with disabilities. We added in employee benefits, right, because that's a big number, and we come up with variable expenses. You take out the equivalent of that for state aid, and so your variable cost, your local variable cost, right, is $46,500,000. That's for all your students, right, across the whole bit. Right now, that's the number that changes as you increase or decrease enrollment. That works out to a net variable local cost of $11,000. So, holding everything else constant, 28 new students would be $316,000 per year of cost to the school district, right? Now, some people can make the argument, and I'm not gonna make it, but some people are gonna make the argument and say, well, if we can accommodate them, are we really gonna add new teaching staff, that kind of thing? We just like to be conservative. We just say, look, budgets go up, budgets go down, generally speaking, with enrollment, this is the number, right? Okay. So we assumed it's gonna float. We took the county out of this because, of course, you're most interested in your town, including the school and the fire, right? And again, a terribly small table here, but what this basically says, we start with the town. The first column of the town is the tax revenue. The second column is the cost that we calculated for the town, which essentially is the police department, right? I mean, in this year. And then we came up with the net. We did the same thing for the school. We did the same thing for the fire. And as was pointed out earlier, the net is positive, but there are some districts that have a negative, there's some districts that have a positive, right? The sense of it being that the average taxpayer will see their total go down, even if they pay a little bit more in town, a little bit more in fire, and a little bit less in school, it evens out, right? And again, this is not a huge, over 30 years in terms of what this benefit is, it's not a tax windfall and it's not a huge burden on the taxpayer. It's pretty neutral in terms of what we see. And I believe that takes me to the end here. I just made the numbers a little bit bigger so they're a little bit more visible here, so you can see the totals across that 30-year totals. I'm going to just flip back to the very first summary slide there. So if we need to reference any numbers, it's a little bit easier to look at this table than the other ones. Any questions or commentary or anything that people want to talk about?
How are we not going over the tax cap every year now for the fire department to balance their budget? The school's almost getting the money, the town's gonna be at a net loss, the fire departments are gonna be at a net loss. How are we not automatically starting off every year now over the tax caps from the fire department budgets to cover this?
Well, I mean, regardless of what happens with, new development, we're regularly seeing 8 and 9% increases, 26% increases, so that is the cost of doing business, and I think it's also important to understand, this is still likely very cheaper per household, per unit, whatever you want to call it, to a single family home. A single family home is requiring highway plowing, so there is a cost to the residents. Industrial and commercial, they are cheaper. So the services we provide to commercial and industrial, we actually make money. And in every town across New York State, every residential property, you're generally overspending. You're spending some of the taxes you get from commercial and industrial properties to offset the cost of providing those services. So when you look at the yearly impact of $20,000 or $50,000 between the town and the fire department, we are adding a lot of housing and it's relatively cheap to the entire town to provide that housing. So if you had 309 single family homes, those 309 single family homes are gonna cost more to the total town tax bill than this project. So what this is presenting is a more efficient type of housing that does, in the long term, allow us to, not only that, it also makes the allowance for affordable housing, which is, generally speaking, something that there has to be an offset for that to make sense. So, however you want to slice and dice those numbers, not to mention the additional economic impact. Granted, the county doesn't give a sales tax, but the benefit for the resident is real.
The benefit to the school is real, the school as well.
But the same people pay the school tax.
I'm seeing us struggling to kind of balance our budget. I'm all for this project, as you guys know, because it's for the workforce housing and everything, but I think we need to really have serious consideration for the budgets going forward. The fire department needs, what is it, almost $60,000 of new equipment. That's
So
going to
that's-
be just at that one property.
That's a projection they gave on what they believe they might need.
Correct.
Neighboring departments already have that in our town, and they're supposed to be working on a mutual aid type. So would they actually need it? I don't know, but if you're giving the actual needs of, if they're asking realistically, if we put 300 units here and there's an increased use and access to the water, hey, we need this. That's before any conversations with a neighboring department saying, oh, but no, we know you have a boat, and they're not talking about a motorboat, but we know that they all three do in Kirkville ice rescue drills already built into the budget. So it's a conservative projection where we do have mutual aid things and combined trainings already happening in shared services and shared equipment. So I brought it up, right? I saw the two net positives, but I do know that that's gonna be like your worst case projection versus what in reality the impact's gonna be. So it's gonna be important to watch in the future, what the true impact is and track that.
I think it's something that we have to be very cognizant of. I mean, the fire departments are they're needed, they're definitely needed and necessary, but their budgets are a big expense to us, and if they're already starting off at a negative right off the bat, we okay, their budgets are gonna be X amount of dollars higher starting right off, going forward. Which means our budget's already gonna be starting off, never mind the fire department budgets, but our budget's already gonna have to start off higher because we can see that we're negative that amount. So combine that together, our budgets are already gonna be starting off higher. Never mind the increases that have to happen as well because of cost of living and their inflation and everything else that's going on there. And for approximately 28 students, the schools are making out very well, which the students are our future, but they do need to have money to do that, but the school's gonna be raising their budgets anyways as well. And then we have to really seriously think about this, and if it's something, somehow, some way, maybe approach the school about a cost sharing or something, because we also, like you said, we don't get sales tax. Maybe even approach the county to see if we can get back in on the sales tax, something, but I mean, this is a beautiful project, it's amazing. We absolutely have to move forward with it, but we can't settle all of that with our other residents. 309 units.
So it's important to understand this is not unique to residential properties. Every residential property that gets approved has a similar size impact. So the other thing is, when you consider the economic impact, the actual economic impact, in 30 years, is there a new business that opens? Is there a business that expands? Are there modifications made to current businesses that will increase tax revenue as the assessments go up to match that economic impact? So if
We don't get sales tax.
the assessments of the properties would go up as they expand, add new services, all of these things that would likely happen with many, many residents living there. So what they're presenting is a conservative estimate based off of all the information we have. And it already comes out ahead of single family homes as being more efficient. And then you add in the economic impact, which is hard to quantify for our budget. But, is the benefit of $50,000 to the tax roll, a year worth the millions of dollars that's gonna get spent in the economy? Those are all things that we have to consider.
I heard assessments going up, which means taxes going up, which again, everything that we hear about complaints from residents.
Assessments going up on commercial and industrial properties that are servicing these residents.
We typically, I feel like we're in a good place when proponents and opponents of a project yell at me, right? And a proponent might say, well, you really should model out like 140 jobs, right? Annual jobs, how many businesses is that? What does that correspond to tax assessments that's being paid by, commercial property? How come that's not factored in, right? Well, we do the best job we can, and we try to maintain a consistent methodology across all different types and across all different communities, so that we're giving you as fair a look as we possibly can. My gut is actually telling me, for example, none of your providers said that this is gonna trip some big cost, right, to them, right? Typically, when you add one call, right, one fire call, one police call, it's not as expensive as the first call. The first call is awfully expensive, right? You tend to get economy of scale. We don't factor that in at all. We just simply say, this is your average cost. We're trying to be right down the middle of it, right? I think this probably overestimates the cost a little bit, right? Because of that fact. But we just prefer to give you straight down the line. This is what it is, right? We could model out what we think what the new commercial property might generate in property tax. It starts to get a little speculative. We prefer not to get speculative. We prefer just to stay right where we are, right? And again, when I think about this, so I deal with a lot of economic development projects. Often the question is, hey, we're gonna have to take this negative fiscal impact, right, in order to get these jobs. What's interesting about this project is you're essentially not paying anything, right? Again, I'm talking about the average taxpayer. But you're getting 140 jobs, right? That's something in itself. So, I'm off my soapbox now.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the detail and the projections provided here. It's a good thing, and certainly understanding, from the individual taxpayer resident perspective, it's a flat equation. It's something to, easily digest. For us as a board, it's, we have a lot to consider in terms of binding ourselves to, and our financial responsibilities to a large project like this. We're here to make decisions like that, so thank you for providing this. And we will certainly be mulling over all of these questions.
Yeah,
So,
and we're happy to continue the dialogue. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? Okay.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we do have our budget public hearing set for the next meeting, November 6th. So what we've got is after I submitted the tentative budget to the board, we've met multiple times to work through various parts of this budget. This is a current working version that we've got, that's gonna be going up on the website, and a finalized version will be posted, I think it's 5 days out from the public hearing, I think is what our requirement is. So we'll be putting that out through the agenda and then also updating the budget page on the website now that we've got something that's a little bit more formed. So this does not consider a number of things, so particular state aid. We usually have a lot of things in the budget that end up being tied to whether or not state aid is gonna come through. This doesn't include any of the ARPA revenue that we've talked about previously. So there are, some gaps in this budget, but also, we are continuing to look at all the different departments where we can cut. I've had a very productive conversation with the chief about what we can try to do with the police budget, which is, of the lion's share of this budget. So it's ongoing. We're happy to take questions. And I think the biggest thing is, when we have a conversation about cutting taxes, generally speaking, that means cutting services. So we are looking for, if people are interested in weighing in on that conversation, we're very interested to hear, what are the services that are getting more expensive that we should be cutting back on? And how does the general public feel about that? So that'll be added to the agenda tomorrow, and then we'll also be on the website tomorrow. So if you want to take a look, please do.
Add it to the website tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so we are gonna backdate the agenda so that it's on.
Oh,
the
put it in, yes,
Yep.
okay. All right, so that was, so I didn't know that, so that.
Okay, any questions? Okay. Next up, highway department updates.
So I'd like to welcome our project architect, Bob Seiger, is on the Zoom. I'd just like to acknowledge Shop for Architects has been a terrific use with this whole project, and we are happy to have them. So this is, we've had conversations about this for about a year, but I realized we hadn't formally sort of pulled it all together. So this is a summary of our highway facility enhancement project, which has been in the works for probably 3 years now. Oh, boy, this is really something. Okay. So this is our highway garage from the sky. The main building is 30,000 square feet, getting a little long in the tooth these days, but still functional. Storage shed was built in 2008 and has recently gotten a new roof. We have an oil water separator that a new system was just installed, and there's an emergency generator that's getting old. So those are like the pieces of that facility that you can see now. Why didn't that move? That doesn't work. Okay. I'm gonna have to work on touch screen. All right, so this is the overview of the proposed enhancements. So the beigey color is the existing garage. The renovations are the blue that's inside the beigey garage, and the additions are the blue that are outside the beigey garage. So we're gonna go into that more in terms of what all of that is gonna be. So the first thing, which didn't show in that picture, I'm sorry. The first thing we did was we wanted to add a cold storage shed. So this is right now, much of the highway equipment lives outside all year round. And we wanted to provide better shelter for this. So this is just a shelter. It's not fancy. It's just a place to park equipment in the off season. So you may know that our basic trucks are the same in summer and winter, and we replaced the bed on them, so the plow part comes off, and the paving part goes on. And it's the same truck, so we have to store half of the stuff all the other season, all the time. So that's part of what this is, and then there's specialized equipment that's just for one season or the other that gets stored. So this is the plan, and this is already underway, this is under construction. And so the plan when that's done is it's going to be a simple pole barn, metal siding, 3 bays, and that little awning type area so that there's some exterior storing out of the rain. It will have electric for lighting and to operate the garage doors, but it won't have any heat. The next area we wanted to address was the mechanic area. So when our facility was built in the original time, there was the idea of a maintenance bay, but the way it was designed, it was actually impractical. The way that the turn radius worked is the trucks couldn't get in there easily. So they actually don't have a maintenance area. They just use a corner of the existing garage. So these are some samples of the work that happens within the existing garage. So there's trucks driving past people that are working on trucks. And it's not bad, but it could be spruced up for modern expectations, and there's no lift. So the mechanic has to lie on his back to work underneath things. So we reviewed some other towns and what they had in more modern facilities. The truck on the left is actually up in the air because that town does have a lift. We just some examples of other towns that we visited with regard to their highway facilities for maintenance. And we do want to do our own maintenance as much as possible. Shipping everything out all the time would not be an efficient use and would get very expensive. So we planned this mechanic addition. This would be a 3-bay service area attached to the existing garage as that addition that showed in the original picture. It's going to be 8,000 square feet. We'll include a new storage area. It will have a crane lift, so it won't. So if you guys have been, I don't know, the Valvoline or something, there's a hole in the ground and the cart, you stand with it. We're not doing that because I'm going to get to the flooding in a minute, but we're not doing that. So this will be a crane in the ceiling that will pull the truck up if you need to get under it. And that's a common practice in garage environments. And it'll have all the modern environmental protections and human safety protections and all that things that you would be hoping for. But when we got into the design phase, we identified that we actually have some flood mitigation areas. So that, I'm sorry I had to clip my picture so much, but you can see there's the highway garage, and that little squiggly blue line is Limestone Creek. Well, it's all pretty flat, and the property is located in a regulated special flood hazard area, which means that we have to take special precautions with regard to flood hazard. The precautions that we've identified first was in the cold storage facility, which is the right picture, the little thing that sort of looks like a dryer vent there. That is a flow through. So in the event of the big one, the water will flow right through that building and all of those equipment will get wet. So whatever's stored in that cold storage shed will get water on it as the water flows through. So we're not going to create a dam.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I just ask a quick question on that?
Sure.
So does that, like when we're storing the current vehicles outdoors, are they near where it's going to be built? And they're probably already, I mean, they're obviously outside, they're going to get rained on and stuff, but has our equipment been flooded due to the
the equipment is exactly where this would be, and if the big one were to happen, it would be flooded, but the big one has not happened. This is planning ahead for a flood that has not yet occurred in this area in the 100 or so years that we've been watching this area.
Okay, thank you.
So this is planning for a flood that we could have said, you know, it was, in the old days, it was, oh, it's a 100-year flood, we won't get that. But 100-year floods come every 10 years now, so we have to be prepared that the big one might come. But this is not an area that currently floods. Which down the street does, but not here. The maintenance addition includes, so that little barrier is an actual little dam that would slide into the garage doors and be a little dam of water to try to keep most of the water out of the maintenance facility. So that's a special unit that you can purchase if you live in a flood zone that creates a barrier and directs the water away from that garage. And all the utilities will be at least 2 feet above the floor. So there will be no power or potentially damaging equipment in the water, should the water get as high as 2 feet is the DEC requirement. So that's where all of that plan is. So I'm sharing this for 2 things. One, these are really cool features that we should know exist. And secondly, that these drive up the cost a little bit because we're adding additional features. So when we go into the second edition, the DEC guidelines of building 2 feet above the base flood elevation becomes more of an issue on the office edition where there's going to be more humans inside. So at the second edition on the southwest corner is going to require some accommodations to actually raise up 2 feet above where the floor of the current garage is and where the floor of the parking lot is. So this is actually going to be, was designed to have ramp entries on both sides of the building and to actually be a higher building. And then I also wanted to point out that the lawn between the 2 additions is the leach field for the oil water separator and will be the location of the emergency generator. So the emergency generator is also going to be on a pedestal, you know, concrete base that's 2 feet high, so that in the event of an emergency, it is not in the water. So all of that is to protect our equipment, but we also want to provide a better work environment for our people. So we have currently locker rooms that are utilitarian, and there is no women's locker room at the facility. So in the anticipation that we will have vehicle operators that are female in the future, we wanted to build a facility that would have a small locker room that would be appropriate for female employees, and also to grow the existing locker room. It's maxed out with the number of people we have now. Our objective for this is to, you know, keep it going for the next 20 years. We expect that we would have a bigger crew in the future. So we do plan a bigger locker room for the men, a small locker room for the women, and just freshening everything up for them. The superintendent's office is currently on the opposite side of the building from the highway secretary's office. So we're going to put those 2 together and also create a conference room, which does not exist currently. And then she would also be at the entrance, which she currently is not. So it would just be better flow in terms of visitors or vendors coming in, that they would get to her first. And then if you could see on this diagram, the lower right is the top of the ramp to come up from outside, and the top left is the ramp going to the main building. So that is that part. And then we want to have training spaces for the workers. So this is their existing lunch training room. Again, utilitarian, it's not horrible, but it's not great either. And so we just want to freshen that up and provide what we would be expecting in employees. And part of this is, you know, the expectations of younger people. We're going to need to be recruiting a good number of new employees because of retirements as well as because of expansion. So we need to be appealing compared to other potential jobs that people could have as either truck drivers or in other municipal places where we want to have an environment that is good. We also do a lot of safety training and want to do facilities. So this room to the right of this picture, sort of the big room with the sort of the lighting X in the top, that's gonna be fitted out with like a screen and some computers and some training materials that currently they don't have at all. So this is an image of the facility building. We've gone with all the appropriate accessibility modifications to make sure that we're designing for ADA. We're designing for high energy standards and environmental sustainability. We do want to point out that because this is being built in phases and we're using different manufacturers, nobody's color charts are named exactly alike. So we're going with the beige palette, and every building will be a slightly different beige, and after it's been out in the sun for a year, it'll be a slightly more different beige. And that's what we're gonna have. But I think beige goes with beige pretty well, so that's our plan. And we are trimming with green, which is the color of our highway equipment. So we are also seriously considering, you know, because the building is raised up, we don't wanna just see 4 feet of foundation block, you know, so we're doing some landscaping and some trim work and stuff to try to make it attractive. And then this is the final, so this is going back to the first picture, the second picture, this is what the layout is again to remind you. So the renovation on the inside is that corner that you can see is the original beige building that is the existing building. And up in the very top left is the foreman's team leader's office being just slightly renovated there. They're gonna get a new window. Then the superintendent secretary wing at the left side and the new maintenance facility in the middle and the new cold storage shed to the right. So that's the overall picture of the plan. So for construction, we started the cold storage shed already. The plan for this evening is to have a request for proposals for a construction manager to manage this part of the project so that we have somebody representing the town that is not the builder. So there'll be an intermediary, a neutral party who will manage the construction, manage the scheduling, all of the supplier, you know, all the supply chain issues that happen with a big project like this. Will be that construction manager. We will bid separately for a, public bid for the actual construction workers, construction company. We expect the improvements to occur starting in 2025 and completing in 2026. And we have to prioritize the existence of maintenance of current operations. So we don't want them to get in the way of the existing work that has to happen from the highway department. So there'll be some accommodation for staying out of their way. Financing plan is the ballpark estimate for this large project is $5 million. We have already secured $240,000 from Senator Mannion, which is what is paying for the cold storage shed. The town board has allocated about $500,000 in ARPA to pay for the work that's being done to date and for the engineering and architecture costs. We will continue to seek grant funding, and there's a resolution on tonight's agenda for a bond anticipation note. And the point of this is not that we would bond now, we won't bond for some time, but the idea is that we would be, any expenses we incur now that ends up in the bond in the future would be allowed. Sometimes if you get grant funding, they say anything you already spent, you can't apply to this. So this is say anything we spend from if you vote yes, from today forward, if we decide to include that in the bond, it would be permitted to be done. So that's the idea behind that. So we do not know that we will need the full $5 million of the bond. So we're not going to actually do the bond until such time as we know how much we really need to borrow. But this would be a way to secure that if we decide in the future that we need to bond for something and we spent it in December, we would be permitted to do that. So that's the nature of that particular plan. And then I would like to thank very much Bob Seigert and Mark Pearson, who've been working with us on this. Bob for a couple years, Mark for all of this year, Rob Cushing, Bill Beeman, Tom Poitras, and myself. And we've been hard at work to make this happen for you, and we really believe this is an important addition for the town to improve our level of service, maintain efficient operations, and keep our highway department going for the next 20, 30, 40 years in their existing facilities, so we don't have to spring for a whole brand new thing. Bob, I'd like to invite you to make any comments that you'd like to make, and Rob, anything that you want to say. I would like to pause and then ask if anybody has questions.
Thanks, Eric. Can you hear me?
We do hear you.
Excellent. No, I think you did a very good job presenting this. And just as a clarification, in terms of the finished floor level of the existing garage is in there at 413, and the base flood elevation is 412.5. So it's the base flood elevation 6 inches below our finished floor. But we've never seen a flood even close to that so far. But we are following by the DEC regulations, as you noted, that require the new design flood elevation to be 2 feet higher. So that's the whole reason behind the different elevations of the additions in there. But I think you did a very good job explaining it, and we're really happy to work with you and Rob and the rest of the town to make this happen.
Thank you. And Shop for Architects has experience with other highway facilities. That was one reason why we picked them. So they bring their own knowledge to the table with this.
Yeah, so Sarah, I just want to point out a couple of things. First of all, the building was built in 1980. Actually, my father worked there in 1980 when we came from over in the village of Manila, with a building that had maybe the capacity to put a quarter of our fleet in now what we have. So over the years, obviously, we've expanded. The town's gotten a lot larger. You know, the equipment that we use, certainly the technology has changed. The mechanics portion of it isn't as easy as it used to be to work on. So, so we need more stuff to use for the technology. It takes up a lot of space. You know, not having a lift is really, really difficult on a lot of municipalities. A lot of the highway garages throughout the state are doing similar to what we're looking to do. And I want to add, you know, the equipment that we're putting in the cold storage facility is not cheap equipment. We're looking at a paver of roughly, if you replace that paver, you're probably talking $500,000. The roller itself is probably around $200,000 to replace. So, so they're not cheap pieces of equipment. You know, in over the years, we've been borrowing and begging other municipalities. So I take my paver over the town of Whit and put in their cold storage. So they ran out of room. So we're all jockeying for position for trying to do that. So I think it's a great plan. I know we've worked hard at trying to put this together. You know, so I think it's in looking to the future. I think that we're putting ourselves on the right track to have enough expansion for the employees, to have a safer work environment, and also having a place to put our equipment, which, you know, again, I've prided myself in the last 20-something years, you know, just being involved with the highway department as the highway superintendent and foreman, that we keep our equipment in top-notch shape, and our resale value on our equipment is paid back several times for us. So again, having a facility where we can keep the maintenance portion of it good, it's all going to come back. It will turn back for us. It helps our municipality. So again, I want to thank you for putting the time in that you put in, and you know, we'll hopefully do this forward.
Any questions?
I was wondering, Rob, and this might be a little bit esoteric, but I'm assuming that by investing in the cold storage that, which up until very recently I thought was a refrigerator. So was really glad to learn that that's not what that was. But with being able to store the vehicles, that will increase their longevity, right? Like they'll last longer and the maintenance will be less.
Yep, absolutely. Caitlin, that's one of the huge things that we, you know, we've got a paint machine that takes up the space in our shop right now. We've got several pieces of equipment that are in the shop right now. You've been there in the winter where it gets really, really tight when you have the plows and wings down. You know, so we're gonna be able to put some of that equipment out into that cold storage facility for the seasonal portion of the year. There's nothing worse, and you could probably ask my guys, if they've gotta go out and get a spare truck with 1.5 or 2 foot of snow, they gotta try and climb up on it and get that stuff off of it. Well, we can actually have a spare right in the cold storage facility. It's gonna make it easier for us to just yank it out. You know, when we've got stuff in service, we've got something in cold storage we can pull out and use. So it's just, it's going to make it a lot easier on our guys, and keeping the equipment maintenance is gonna make it, and there's gonna be a lot less wear and tear for it to sit out in the weather. You know, we'll replace batteries on a lot of things just because they freeze over the winter. We've never had an able way to plug them in, to keep the batteries maintained during the winter. So there's definitely a cost saving by just having that stuff in and out, you know, in and out of the weather, so.
Ingrid, I think you had a question. Thought I heard it.
And it's coming up for, it's another item on the agenda, but can we please characterize the, construction management service as not a neutral third party, but actually an advocate on our behalf?
Yeah.
Make sure that the contract is, you know, to our favor.
Yeah, I think that's key, you know what I mean, and having, you know, go out to bid and having a contractor also be the manager, the construction manager. I just think this will
Optimize
keep
to make
working
sure that
for
we get
us.
the best thing for our money
Correct.
out of this project.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think most municipalities that are doing, you know, expansions, they're all doing that, so.
Yeah, you're almost forced into it in municipal work because we're required to have separate prime contracts. So you have a general contractor, you have an HVAC contractor, you have plumbing, you have fire protection, and there's unlike private work, there's no general contractor to take responsibility for all that. So that's why we use construction managers when we do municipal work for most projects.
Anything else?
Also,
Thank you very much. And thank you, Bob and Mark and Raj.
All right, thank you.
next item up on the agenda is that you're referring to.
So, there is a typo on that motion.
Yes,
I
I
apologize.
see that,
I missed
yeah.
a couple zeros.
So based on this whole discussion, we did, Bill Markwart, right? We consulted with bond counsel, William Markwart, and this, so I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that before we dive into the resolution.
The engagement letter itself, or are you talking about?
Well, I think we already.
Well, the reimbursement, I mean, you went through the reimbursement resolution pretty adequately. I think just as a reiteration, we're not committing to any bonding by passing this resolution. It's simply a mechanism so that we can recoup whatever costs we spend on construction management services, architecture services, and things like that through the bonding if and when we actually end up doing that. So that's what the reimbursement resolution is for.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution declaring official intent to reimburse an original expenditure from the town's general fund with the proceeds of tax exempt indebtedness in accordance with Treasury Regulation Section 1.150-2 in the amount of $5 million.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Okay, great.
Then the RFP, right?
All right, so the next one is for the construction manager we just discussed, a motion to authorize the publication. So this is to go public to recruit the construction manager. The motion to authorize the publication of the RFP for the renovations and addition of the highway department garage.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
So Rob, if you want to talk about the trucks a little bit, that's the next thing.
Yeah, I can, again, I think this is something that, the board's getting pretty familiar with here, just because of the way we've got to purchase these vehicles, with, the way the state contracts work. We're like 2 years behind, so we need to put letters of intent out to get in line, to purchase these vehicles, in order for them, for the build out date, that we don't get pushed out, and then the costs are just gonna be that much more to us. Now, again, these letters that we put out there is an agreement, it's basically a handshake agreement between us and the vendor. that where the interpretation is that we are intending to purchase the vehicle on a state contract through their facility. And again, that just puts us in line. So I've been working really hard with Friendly Ford. In the past, we've done a lot of work with Van Bortle. But Friendly Ford is also on the state contract. So we're able to, and this is for pickups, by the way, this is for looking to replace 2 of our pickups. So as soon as we put those in service, we'll sell the other 2 that we have. But the goal is to get us in line, to purchase those 2 pickup trucks come January 1. Obviously, we're within the budget season right now. We put the money, in the 2025 budget, providing it is passed. But what we're looking to do basically is just send a letter of intent to Friendly Ford, agreeing that we'll be purchasing these vehicles in 2025. So I guess at this point, what I need to do is just ask for a motion. We'll need to sign a letter of intent, get that to Friendly Ford, and they'll put us in line and place an order basically for a couple of trucks, and hopefully we'll see these by spring would be the goal. So, and just for, they have sent me quotes on the state contract for the 2 pickups. So there'll be 2025 350s. And the quote that we're getting is $60,206, 80 per proposal. So that'll be for each truck. So, and again, that'll be delivered in the spring. And again, I'll come back to the board once we pull the trigger for the purchase of these. But this is just a letter of intent to get the ball moving.
So I'll make a motion to approve 2 letters of intent signed by the superintendent of highways for the purchase of 2 new and unused 2025 F-350 XLT pickups in the amount of $60,206.80 each, for a total of $120,416.60 from Friendly Ford of Geneva to be funded from the 2025 budget.
I'll second.
Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll say it's a fun new world to live in where we're handshaking to buy trucks next year.
Yeah.
It's really just.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're in the run with everyone else, and I see no end in this for a while. I don't know when we're gonna be back on pace with the purchasing problems, but I'm sure, Joe, you see it all over too, so.
Okay, so next up, we do have some paperwork to sign off for the grant that we received through, I want to say, I forget exactly which program it was, but it was for the efforts of Sustainable Manlius. This was a grant that we were looking for a project. We reached out to the folks over at the Tops Plaza over in Manlius. They were interested in having some charging stations installed. And so it's been a little bit of a process to get here, but we're at the point now where we've got some prepared motions so that I can sign off on the letter and the terms of service and everything like that, so we can get that project rolling.
Am I allowed to
Essentially,
make motions remotely, or should I just vote on them?
We've got, yeah, you can make the motion.
So, this was a Clean Energy Communities grant that we received, and it was one of the larger grants. So like with the smaller grants, you can kind of not do what you want, like you have to get it approved, but there's a lot more flexibility. But we received a larger grant where you have to do a pre-approved project, and we chose to do a charging station in the village of Manlius outside Skytop Coffee and the Tops Plaza there. It's actually going to be further away than we had originally intended it, like right next to the main road there, closer like to where the dry cleaner is. So finally, we've been working on this for almost 2 years. So not exactly time efficient, but super excited. It looks like all that work is going to happen next week. So if you want to charge your electric vehicle, you should be able to do that by Halloween. So let me pull up my motion list here. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the electric vehicle infrastructure make ready program participant terms and conditions with National Grid for reimbursement up to $12,600 for the installation of charging plugs.
Galen, is this for, because I'm not that smart when it comes to these chargers. I don't have electric, I have a hybrid, the electrical. Are the chargers already installed and this is just for different types of plugs to go on them, or is that what they're calling the chargers? The charging
So
one?
they'll have the, but they're not dissimilar from the ones we already have at Town Hall. They're a different company. But you can, like they come with the plug and you put them into your car. If you have a car that doesn't accept the traditional plug that most vehicles do accept, like the one in the Village of Fayetteville and the one behind Town Hall, a lot of those vehicle owners will buy, like a converter that you can attach and then use. But most electric vehicles, like a Tesla, I don't think can charge there without a converter because they have a different kind of plug. But I think every other electric vehicle uses the same one. Does that answer your question?
I think it's right.
Yeah, so it's the whole.
So it's the whole thing?
Yeah,
Because it
yeah.
said plugs.
Yeah.
Are we getting different plugs for like as adapters or? Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it'll look like the one behind Town Hall and the one up the street in the Village.
And the attorneys reviewed it.
Yeah, I called the grant administrator, or the administrative organization, the terms are not negotiable, so there's nothing that we can even change with the terms and conditions, even if we wanted to, so I'll just verify, we don't have to do this subject to legal approval. I'm fine with the terms and conditions as is.
Okay. And Kaylin, how excited are you that this is finally happening?
I am very excited and I feel very appreciative. I want to thank John Dallas, who is the owner of Tops Plaza and who owns that property. He's been very patient and also persistent. Like he has followed up and he's really wanted to see this project through. So I'm I would say 99.9% sure he's not watching this meeting right now, but in the event that he is, John, thank you so much for your cooperation and tenacity in helping us to pursue this project. And I know that the owners of Skytop have been really supportive and excited too. So I think it's going to be really cool to see it over there. And it'll be really good to not have to look at the emails anymore.
I share Caitlin's enthusiasm. It's been a long time coming. So thanks for your work on this, Caitlin.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
second.
you, Manlius.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Very exciting to see that underway. So next up on the agenda, we do have the Anders Road sidewalk district presentation. So last Wednesday? Thursday, we met over in the middle school on Anders Road where we were joined by, I think, 25 people, give or take. We had a couple people on Zoom. We were there with our engineering firm, Novella, who was working on the map plan and report for the Anders Road Sidewalk District. They did a great job presenting it. We wanted to make sure that people understood the costs, timeline, all things like that. Really good back and forth with the residents that joined us. Overall, I think very well received, a lot of questions answered, but also at the same time too, it's very preliminary. We're waiting for that map plan report to get completed. We kind of walk through the process, and we will be making the video available for folks that would like to watch. And we've made the PowerPoint presentation available on the agenda. So overall, really successful meeting, a lot of excitement moving forward with that project. So let's see, next up, your management.
Yeah,
Want to take being managed?
not yet. Carrie, you wanna talk
So
a bit about this?
Allison left me a lot of breadcrumbs, so thank you, Allison. I did contact the DEC, contact that Allison had, her name's Courtney, to see what we could do as far as moving forward. William has attempted to contact Fayetteville with no response, correct?
Not as of this meeting.
Yes, so, Courtney had said in the past, the town of Manlius has moved forward with the application process. Either way, if Fayetteville wants to join back in, they would have to fill out their own application anyways. So William and I spoke, we think maybe we should just move forward with the process as far as the town of Manlius continue the process. Even if Fayetteville decides they no longer want to be part of that.
Yeah, my feeling is that they do. It's just been a matter of logistics and managing timelines and getting things together with a change in administration there.
Right.
So I think it would behoove this board to go ahead and proceed with authorizing the supervisor to submit the DEC permit application on our behalf for the town's involvement in the intermunicipal deer management plan. And if it ends up not being an intermunicipal deer plan, it's simply the town of Manlius engaging with USDA and DEC to continue its deer management activities. I think that, we should do that. I will add, just a little piece of detail to that the primary, successful culling of deer is on town properties, really. I mean, the data from the prior years indicates that it's the properties located within town where most of the product is being pulled from.
It's a good way to put it.
Well, just that, we've taken it upon ourselves as, as at least the town's portion of the deer management intermunicipal committee to poll the public on the relative merits of the program. And it's pretty clear that it's important to engage public, that the deer are viewed as a nuisance in the residential areas. Damages that their costs are worth, that the damages they're causing are worth the expense and concerns that go with the deer management plan of this nature. So I believe it's in our and everyone's best interest to continue to proceed with the plan, assuming that there will be intermunicipal involvement, and even if there is not.
And there's also an impact on traffic accidents.
Oh, yeah.
Are we gonna do that at the next meeting, or do we
I
have?
think we can do a motion.
If we could do the motion to get you to sign the
Sure.
application, and then I can start working with the DC.
Sure. Yeah, to make a motion to allow this town supervisor to submit the DEC application for deer management program for 2025 on behalf of the town.
I'll second.
Yeah, any questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So we'll mark Ingrid down.
Thank you. Who seconded?
Oh. Perfect action. Voting in favor.
And Miss, who seconded? Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Sorry.
Okay. Next up, crematory grant, you wanna talk to us a little about that?
Yeah, so this is a continuation. As you may be aware, we received a $75,000 grant from the DEC. Previous meetings, we authorized supervisor to sign off on the contract and the statewide financial system. Now we are at the part where we finally received the MWBE paperwork and the SDVOB Equal Employment Opportunity Policy Statement as well. Both were sent to our town attorney for review, and I haven't heard back, so I'm assuming he's okay with it. So, I mean, I haven't heard back with any negative feedback, is what I meant. So now we are at the point where we need to authorize the supervisor to sign off on that, so that we can then send that back to the DEC, who will then send that to their people to review, and then they'll send that to the comptroller to sign off and say it's okay, we'll send it back to the DEC, and then send it back to us, so we can sign off on it, to send back to them to have final paperwork. Then the contract will be signed, then we can start drawing the funds. It's a long process. Anyone have any questions? Okay, so
The only thing I'll add is I know, this started out as a kind of an interesting one-off project where we were able to partner a little bit or have some efficiencies with the village of Fayetteville as they do a tree inventory, and as we're, working on our GIS program, we've been talking with the folks who are doing the inventory, and so all of that data will be readily available within the new GIS system. So, I think while there's an intent to do the tree inventory, there's gonna be there's a lot of other things that came out of it, but I think you're right.
yes, actually, I have a kickoff meeting with Davey, who's the contractor that's gonna be doing the tree inventory for us as well as the village of Fayetteville tomorrow evening, which is, even though we haven't signed a contract, they say that they're willing to start working with us without signing a contract with them, because then we won't pay them until we have the stuff signed off with Davey to start paying them tomorrow to see what's gonna be coming next. So then at our next board meeting, I very well might have more stuff to ask you to be signing as well. So with that, I will like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the New York State DEC, MWBE, and SDVOB Equal Employment Opportunity Policy Statement.
Awesome.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next up, the Kirkville fire budget. Kirkville is a little different than Manoa, Fayetteville, and Manlius. It's a fire district in and of itself. So there's different requirements. So we've got that, budget on the agenda for this meeting. The total budget compared to the, $1 million budgets we were talking about last meeting, the total budget for this district is $251,170. So very different district than the other three. And I would just look for a motion to accept the district budget.
I think that motion to accept the Kirkville Fire District's 2025 budget in the amount of $251,170. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so, let's see, so budget transfers. So this is something that we've been working on this year. After we submitted our annual financial report, we had some feedback from Comptroller's office. The normal way that we've been doing budgeting at the end of the year and kind of balancing all the accounts and things like that is not the preferred method. They asked us to begin doing budget transfers and amendments and things like that on a monthly or even just meeting basis. So we have tried to just set it to at least once a month, every quarter or so. We did confer with many members of our legal team. We do have to read each of these motions separately.
Sorry, guys, I
So
tried.
anybody would like to, but basically, overall, these are transfers as the budget has evolved throughout the year. What we're doing is we are moving the money to where it is actually being spent from. We're reducing costs where it makes sense, or we've experienced so what this is doing is making it so at the end of the year, the budget has been amended multiple times. So the amount of things that are happening at the end of December, ideally are just the changes that happen in December and what we need to do to close the year out. So really, this is just really a benefit of having a comptroller now and trying to do a little bit better job meeting the standards of budgeting. So I don't know, would anyone like to volunteer to read them?
I'll do two.
Okay, go ahead. You can do the first.
Oh, no, I'm doing like this, the second class. I'll do the tree commission ones.
All right, I'll do the water ones. I'm the water thing. Motion to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $61,000 from SW2 5.8310.400 Manlius Consolidated Water District Water Administration to contractual to SW2 5.8340.400 Manlius Consolidated Water District transferred discontractual. What's the dis mean?
District.
Okay, contractual.
I probably would have read the abbreviation.
That's what she said.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Faster, Sarah, faster. Come on, let's hear it.
Motion to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $81 from W805.8310.400 Shop Water District to W805.8340.400 Shop Water District contractual.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Opposed?
to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $80 from W905.8310.400 Water District to W905.8340.400 Waterville District contractual.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Motion to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $10,737 from A004.3389.310 SLETPP grant to A005.3120.400 police contractual.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Motion to approve the budget transfer in the amount of $321 from A005.1460.400 records management contractual to A005.1460.405 records management info tech.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Motion to approve a budget transfer in the amount of $70 from A005.1410.402 town clerk seminars to A005.1410.403 town clerk association dues.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
I'll do this.
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to approve a budget transfer in the amount of $450 from A005.6310.402 tree commission seminars to A005.6310.400 tree commission contractual.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Motion to approve a budget transfer in the amount of $2,938 from A005.1010.400 town board contractual to A005.6310.400 tree commission contractual.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Motion to approve a budget transfer in the amount of $247 from CM3 5.6791.401 sustainable Manlius Earth Fest expenses to CM3 5.6790.400 sustainable Manlius watershed stewards contractual.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. motion carries. As an aside, I will be lobbying our state reps to do something about that.
But it's so much fun to listen to people just like try, like it's great.
I'll do it next, I'll do it next time.
Yeah.
Maybe there won't be that much.
Okay,
But just think about doing all of these individually in December.
yeah, yeah.
That's Rudy and entire meeting.
Okay. One is for the police.
Okay, so next up, we have the supervisor's report for, September 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the supervisor's report.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and then we have got the minutes and the abstract, and then, we will be going into executive session following, these last two motions, to discuss employment.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Got a couple of announcements.
Okay,
Right. Do a couple announcements.
yeah, go. Just do it now.
So Wicked Woods was this over the weekend, and it was very successful.
Perfect weather.
Yes, it was very nice weather. It was beautiful. There was $253 donated, 1,460 pounds of food donated, and it equals 1,976 meals for the CNY community.
Attendance was down this year, number of cars.
I don't have a specific number of cars, but the lines are very long.
Yeah,
I
the
waited
lines were
45
still long.
minutes.
I think what ended up happening was, there was a slight decrease. Basically, it was, I think attendance was near what it was, but they had been planning for more.
Yeah.
But basically, on the weather, I think last time it was kind of a rainy day, so it was clearly there, easier to make that call. And then, probably a little bit of, folks who came last time waited for a long time and opted to do something else. But overall, it was a fantastic event.
And there was new people that went this year too. A coworker of mine actually even told me that he went with his grandson for the first time and really enjoyed it. He hadn't actually been to Green Lakes in years. He said, and went. It was.
Melissa, can you send me those numbers?
I sure can.
So the Manlius Watershed Stewards has an event on Saturday, the 26th, which is this Saturday morning at 11 a.m. We will be planting trees along a stream edge in the Three Falls Woods area. And this is with the great cooperation of the Onondaga County Soil and Water Conservation District, the Village of Manlius, and the Isaac Walton League, and the members of the Manlius Watershed Stewards. And the point of this is to assist in soil stabilization and erosion prevention along where the water flows in Three Falls Woods, and you know, protect that beautiful asset that we have right here, and provide some educational opportunity to some volunteers and some kids. And the trees are only about this big, so literally anybody can plant them. So it might be a little wet, which is a good thing. Then we have to go water the trees, so it's just gonna be fine. So
volunteers are welcome.
volunteers are more than welcome, and there's an event on our town website and on our Facebook about where to park, basically Glencliff Road, at the Three Falls Woods entrance. And look for the nifty new sign. All right, that's it.
Anything else? Okay. Look for a motion to approve minutes.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 9th, 2024.
I'm abstaining.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same. Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve abstract number 20 in the amount of $424,227.15.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye,
Abstain.
motion carries. Okay, so like we said, anything else before we move into executive session? So I would look for a motion to go into executive session to discuss employment matters. So we'll.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay, motion carries.
So, I think you guys have to leave Zoom and join on the phone.
You guys can just turn your mics and cameras off.
There's much better.
Right, we are back live.
We tend to lose our crowd when they go into session.
Okay,
But it is streaming.
so we have now left executive session to discuss an employment matter, and Counselor Nicholson will read I think a letter or recommendation from the police committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So, the town of Manlius Police Department has been operating for 18 months under the direction of a provisional temporary status chief appointed by the board in March of 2023. Upon publication of the Onondaga County Civil Service list of eligible qualified candidates for the position, released on September 12 of 2024, the town and police committee evaluated the processes necessary to commence with the selection of a permanent chief appointment. The town opted to recruit from the promotional list of qualified internal candidates comprised of 4 eligible persons. Canvass letters were issued to every eligible person. Each responded interested and were promptly scheduled for interviews. During the weeks covering October 7th through the 18th, representatives from the town conducted interviews of each of the 4 applicants using a consistent, organized format designed to establish coherent applicant ranking based upon clear, observable, evaluated criteria, including but not limited to relevant experience, alignment with the vision and direction of town and its constituents, management philosophy, conflict resolution approaches, strategic planning and long-term goals, and key stakeholder relationship management. Following conclusion of the candidate interviews, the town representatives deliberated and ranked accordingly the individual applicants. Notably, each applicant from the promotional eligible list represents an excellent consummate professional, absolutely worthy of selection, and an asset to the town and its department. Nevertheless, there can only be one appointment, and the town has identified a favored selection according to the unanimous opinion of the evaluation team. This selection was reviewed within the intermunicipal police committee for an advisory opinion prior to this town board meeting on October 23rd, at which point this selection and appointment will be voted on by this town board. And with that, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jason Casalia as permanent status police chief under the existing 2024 MOU at a salary of $150,000.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So thank you to Jason Caselli for continuing on as chief of police of the town of Manlius.
Motion to adjourn. Really?
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Have a good night, everybody.
It's almost as bad as, the minute.